Part 37. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 361. Now Wang Ling can't even mention how depressed he is. The battle between the Wolf Group and Allied Base number 14 has reached this point. It can be said that this base can be completely annihilated at any time. But just leaving these Navy behind is not just to pick up a bargain. Air defense experience. This is great. This group of aircraft carriers is so desperate that they don't even need the docks and can just leave. Damn, you guys are so cruel. After venting for a while, Wang Ling gradually calmed down. Gaining experience this time was not without gain. Although the Wolf Group's anti-aircraft tracked vehicles did not take much advantage, Wang Ling himself raised the anti-aircraft infantry to the top level, so it was not in vain. Of course, compared to Wang Ling, those aircraft carriers that slipped away were even more depressing. They are majestic naval weapons, but in the end, 4 carrier-based fighter jets launched side by side and fought from night to day, but they failed to kill a single person and gave away so much experience for no reason. The dock is also a major productivity building and is the foundation of the Navy. Even if the Army is completely annihilated in ordinary times, as long as the dock and Navy exist, the Allies will not take the initiative to admit defeat. But now, the 4 major aircraft carriers and more than a dozen destroyers are escorting them. In the end, they don't even need the dock. This shows how depressed he is and would rather run away than play anymore. When it comes to exterminating the household, Wang Ling did much more than they did. Of course, their escape directly symbolized the complete destruction of Base 14, and this battle officially ended with the victory of the Wolf Group. However, after the battle was won, the atmosphere in the Wolf Group was very subtle and awkward. Needless to say, Wang Ling, who kicked his nose and face without success, was still feeling a little uncomfortable now. Sun Dehua, Hu Ben and other old members felt a little gloating when they saw Wang Ling like this. It's rare to see this cheap team leader deflated. The other soldiers did not show much excitement now, because after the ground troops and buildings of the Allied base number 14 were pushed down, the base was finished. Wang Ling deliberately dragged the Navy to prevent the battle from ending. Said that the excitement has long since passed. Pretty. Oh. Well done, ha ha ha, it's not in vain that we have been helping to contain the Allied reinforcements. However, other coalition forces cheered excitedly, such as the 4 major coalition field groups currently stationed outside the other 4 coalition bases to restrain these reinforcements. Although the main battle was with the Wolf Group, they were also involved in this plan after all. Seeing the success of the Wolf Group, they couldn't help but be excited. Let me tell you, this guy Wang Ling is so scheming, send him out to fight. Of course, General Li Wiki couldn't help but clap his hands at the number 15 coalition base command post. Rovitsky committed an old habit and was picky. I also admit that Wang Ling did have some tricks. But in the end it was a pity that he let those Navy go. Wang Ling really, why did the stalemate last so long in advance? Directly, wouldn't it be better to abort it? Tisk tisk, Wang Ling is better than you. Didn't you see that after fighting for so long, Wang Ling is getting more and more familiar with it? I think he is deliberately practicing with the help of those carrier-based fighter jets. Rovitsky was speechless for a moment. Wang Ling had made a contribution, so he couldn't keep complaining like this. Ha ha ha, Lao Li, congratulations, you won this battle better than ever. Well done, Lao Li. I couldn't tell, you old guy is so calculating. At this time, even the commanders of other bases contacted here and congratulated. When the decisive battle reaches this point, bases on both sides will be destroyed from time to time. Winning a battle is not worthy of such congratulations. However, the previous victories of the Allied forces basically relied on Kirov airships, which destroyed the Allied forces' productivity buildings and forced the entire base to relocate. This approach certainly reduces the number of Allied bases, but the relocated soldiers also strengthened the strength of other Allied bases, which has been criticized by many coalition commanders for a long time. However, Wang Ling's Wolf Group launched a ferocious attack and almost wiped out an entire Allied base. Although some aircraft carriers and destroyers were lost, it was insignificant compared to the entire base. This kind of achievement can be said to be more satisfying than the previous bombing of several Allied bases. For a while, General Li Wiki also became a little angry among the commanders on this decisive battlefield. Of course, Li Wiki also tried to put the credit and blame on Wang Ling, but these commanders did not pay too much attention to a team leader, and only some shrewd commanders asked about it. Among them, the commander of Base Number 6, Major General Lovsky, finally noticed Wang Ling and Xiaoping Wang. After some exchanges, he felt sad. These contacts have nothing to do with Wang Ling. Not to mention that he is a team leader. Other base commanders cannot contact him directly. Even if Wang Ling really has this authority, after this war, Wang Ling has no intention to do this. For him, this was no easier than fighting. Now, the aircraft carrier has escaped, the destroyer has escaped, the dock has been demolished, and the original Allied base number 14 is considered finished. This battle can almost be called a complete victory. However, there are always sacrifices in war. Even if it is a complete victory, there will inevitably be many casualties in the Wolf Group. 3 Kirov airships were shot down in advance to disrupt the plan, and the tanks were used as shields. The losses were considerable. After the war, some statistics showed that more than 30 tanks of various types exploded. On the other hand, the number of casualties among mobilized soldiers was slightly smaller. With the protection of tanks, only more than 100 people died in one battle. This number sounds large, but compared to the demise of the Allied base, it is much smaller. In this expedition, Wang Ling will naturally not target only one Allied base. After the organization of the troops was changed, the Wolf Group became stronger and stronger, with a large number of personnel and tanks. Even if such a group of subordinates were killed in the battle, they still maintained a very strong combat effectiveness. Relying on these combat capabilities, Wang Ling can attack an Allied base again. However, to be on the safe side, Wang Ling did not launch an offensive immediately. The tanks of the Wolf Group now had many serious injuries and left health, and there were also many wounded among the soldiers. They were not suitable for continuous combat. Wang Ling simply let these wounded retreat towards the base together with the tanks. When will the severely injured tanks be repaired, the wounded soldiers fully recovered, and some more soldiers added to carry the remaining 3 Kirov airships, then it will be time to launch another attack. During this period, the remaining members of the Wolf Group were not idle. After all, this place was within the Allied forces' sphere of influence. Even though Base 14 had been destroyed, it was still dangerous to stay for a long time. After the wounded left, Wang Ling with a wave of his hand, he led other members of the Wolf Group and moved closer to the surrounding coalition field group that was restricting Allied reinforcements. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 362. In order to ensure that the constraint range is large enough and the number of Allied bases is limited, although the Wolf Group is the main battle group, there are 4 other base field groups sent to cooperate for this purpose. Among them, there were 2 team leaders whom Wang Ling did not know. They had only communicated with each other through the radio specially connected by Major General Li Wiki before. However, the other 2 team leaders are old acquaintances. One is Long Gang, the leader of the steel team at the number 10 coalition base, and the other is Xia Tian, the leader of the fire team at the number 8 coalition base. Because of the joint fight against the enemy, Wang Ling had made friends with the 5 captains, current team leaders, of other bases. Now, only these 2 are left. The place where the Wolf Group moved closer during the reorganization was the location of the Steel Group, located in the center of the 4 field groups, next to the Fire Group. Wang Ling has not seen these old comrades since the last time they said goodbye. After getting closer smoothly, it is inevitable that the two will feel a little sad when they meet each other. The military salutes given to each other are very powerful. Long Gang is still the same as before, taciturn and with a serious face. His whole person gives people a cold and cool feeling. Of course, that was to outsiders. To Wang Ling, an old comrade who was gradually becoming famous on the battlefield, this steely man rarely raised the corners of his mouth and showed a smile. Long time no see. Long time no see. After receiving the military salute, Wang Ling even stepped forward and gave Long Gang a firm hug. And Long Gang didn't refuse. After the two brothers hugged each other well, Long Gang also refused to pick up any of the pots. At first, the six of us fought together. Although it was difficult during that time, it was really fun. But in the blink of an eye, the sea has changed, and the meat grinder of war has spared no one. 3 brothers have already died in the battle. Team leader Wang Ling, the war is very cruel, but you have to live well. I don't want this war to end. I don't have a brother around me who can talk. He spoke very few words, but every sentence hit the point. After hearing this, Wang Ling felt a surge of emotion in his heart. Meeting old comrades, there was a rare moment of pretentiousness. After sighing, the wolf group chose a convenient location nearby and settled down. The war is still going on, and the wolf group's attack plan is far from over. However, now is not the time to launch a charge. We still need to wait for the wolf group to regain its strength. After fighting for so long last night, the entire wolf team stayed up all night. They were all very tired now. With the steel team's protection, it was safer, so they simply took advantage of this time to rest during the shift. Wang Ling was naturally no exception. After a whole night of gaining experience, he had to take a nap to replenish his energy. However, he did not take the opportunity to return to the real world to rest. He only slept in the temporary camp for a few hours, and spent the rest of the time observing the enemy's situation. Plan before taking action, coupled with Wang Ling's perverted existence, the wolf group's ferocity and cunningness when attacking Allied Base number 14 shocked other Allied bases. Now the wolf group and the steel group have joined together. Although they are resting and recuperating, the Allies did not dare to take the opportunity to send troops to destroy them. However, behind the scenes, there was also an undercurrent on the Allied side. The newly arrived Allied bases hiding on the rear front mobilized part of their forces and rushed to the number 11 Allied base targeted by the two field groups in advance. Among them, the Air Defense Force is the top priority, almost surrounding the entire base into an iron barrel, and 6 Kirov airships can't even think of breaking in. With more soldiers, the dark area created by the crack generator could not be completely covered. There were inevitably many shadowy figures flickering around the area, which Wang Ling observed. However, Wang Ling just smiled and said nothing, not caring at all. Waiting until night, there were no other special situations on the battlefield. Wang Ling arranged the rotation of personnel and returned to the real world. After all, there was still a large-scale battle coming, and Wang Ling was not in a hurry to tally up the points so quickly. But after returning to the real world, he couldn't wait to jump out of bed. With a thought, he got a weapon that belonged to him. The King-level anti-aircraft gun barrel was carried directly on his shoulders. While rubbing this familiar old friend, Wang Ling couldn't help but laugh. Reality is not like the game Red Alert World. The firepower of this kind of gun barrel is extremely terrifying. It only takes one shot. Wang Ling's entire dormitory may collapse, and the entire dormitory building will be greatly affected, with large areas of cracking. All the glass windows were shattered. Are militarized weapons a joke when put into practice? However, the reality is not like the game world. Wang Ling did not dare to try it at all. He did not dare to fire even one shot. After rubbing it, he quickly put it away, for fear that someone would see it. After the excitement, Wang Lingke lay on the bed again and silently contacted Uncle He. We are considered weapons with terrifying lethality in reality, right? But Uncle He, I accepted this enhancement and gift, but what use does this thing have to me in reality? Uncle He said in a cryptic tone, of course it will be useful, but you don't have to be too anxious. Just develop with peace of mind. Don't be overwhelmed by the many skills. It's good to have so many skills that you don't overwhelm yourself. Seeing that Wang Ling couldn't get anything out of the question, he simply didn't bother to ask any more. After a day's rest, Wang Ling returned to the red alert world, waiting and observing. While waiting, nearly 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Wolf Group troops had rested for such a long time, and their mental state had all returned to fullness. In the base, all the tanks that had been withdrawn by the Wolf Group had been repaired through the maintenance factory, and all the wounded had been treated in the hospital. In addition, more than 20 Rhino tanks, Apocalypse tanks, and anti-aircraft tracked vehicles were built in the base. In addition, the paratroopers transported in a short period of time were combined into the Wolf Group's troops, which drove to the battlefield overnight. As they moved, the 3 remaining Kirov airships that had been built before also moved with them and rushed towards the battlefield. The second round of the Wolf Group's offensive is about to begin. All they have to do is wait for the troops to be in place and the Kirov airship to bombard them. After all, the battlefield area was too large. Even if this group of soldiers traveled all night, it took them almost a whole night to join the large force of the Wolf Group and take the opportunity to rest for a few hours. Now, the Wolf Group has taken action again, and the Kirov airship has also taken action. This has really aroused the nerves of the Allied forces. They are highly nervous and have their eyes on Allied base number 11. However, just as the Kirov airship approached and Allied base number 11 prepared for comprehensive defense, Wang Ling said goodbye to Long Gang, the Steel Group, and led the Wolf Group to rush to the Fire Group's location. At the same time, the 3 Kirov airships that were originally flying to the direction of Base 11 also temporarily changed their direction and flew to Base 10. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 363. That's right, Wang Ling never thought about attacking Allied Base 11. What he wanted to attack from the beginning was Base 10. Before that, he just rested there with the help of the protection of the Steel Group, and deceived others. After all members of the Wolf Group are in place, the transfer will naturally begin. Allied Force Base number 11 was really sensitive before and called a group of reinforcements to garrison it. There is no way, whoever makes the Wolf Group have too much momentum, if you don't pay attention, it may be a disaster. But now it seems that all they have done is in vain, and the Wolf Group is too lazy to attack them. Seeing the transfer of the Wolf Group, both the original guards and the reinforcements in base number 11 were stunned, but after calming down, they breathed a sigh of relief. If the Wolf Group leaves and doesn't target them, their pressure will be reduced instantly. Damn it, isn't this army going to attack number 11? Why are they here now? However, in the Allied base number 10, the guards and commanders all jumped. The commander looked up from the electronic map when Zhong observed the movements of the Wolf Group. He was so anxious that he was spinning around. The previous results of Base 14 were still fresh in his mind. No, this army cannot be judged by common sense. The combat effectiveness is too terrible. It may be difficult for us to defend it. Quick, change the defense strategy, and call me for reinforcements quickly. The more the better. In his impatience, the commander did not sit still and quickly issued orders one after another. Under his order, all the Prism tanks and Phantom tanks that were originally hidden in the base were mobilized to the intersection. Even many multifunctional infantry vehicles and rocket pilots were blocked here, as if they were trying to kill the wolf. All members of the team were in a shutout posture. As for the reinforcements, the response was not that great. Previously, due to the gathering of the Wolf team and the Steel team, Base 11 was too sensitive and tried their best to pull all the reinforcements from behind the front to Base 11. Now those on the rear front, the number of reinforcements the base can provide is already very small. Several nearby Allied bases were restrained by the coalition's field teams, and they did not dare to send troops on a large scale. Those that were too far away were not constrained, but distant water could not save close fire. This situation is indeed rather embarrassing. Of course, Wang Ling had calculated these situations earlier, and was not surprised at all now. When Allied Base Number 10 was dispatching troops, the Wolf Group's large force had successfully arrived nearby and met with the Fire Group. The leaders of the Tonghuo team, Xia Tian and Wang Ling, were also friends for a long time, so they naturally felt sad after meeting each other. Originally, Wang Ling's attack plan, these four field groups were only responsible for containment and cooperation, and there was no need to directly send troops to attack the Allied base. But Xia Tian is an exception here. He took the initiative to attack the number 10 Allied base with the Wolf Group. Xia Tian is a person who is a bit fiery to begin with and a bit crazy when fighting, but he is also a kind-hearted person who attaches great importance to friendship. Before he joined the army, he and Zhang Yang were old friends. After joining the army, the two took care of each other. Although they bickered and sarcastic with each other without politeness, they had a very deep relationship with each other. However, under the Allied attack some time ago, the coalition base where Zhang Yang was located, together with Zhang Yang, died on the battlefield. After learning the news, Xia Tian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The death of his old comrades for many years made Xia Tian hate the Allies. It happened that the Allied base number 10 was the one who participated in that war. After learning about Wang Ling's attack plan, he directly made a request. The target was changed to base number 10, and the fire team would also participate in the battle. Quan thought it was revenge. Wang Ling knew this and did not make things difficult for him. The original plan was to attack another relatively weaker Allied base, but at this moment, he directly targeted the number 10 Allied base. With the help of the fire team, this attack will be easier. After the sighs were over, Wang Ling led the Wolf Group and gradually approached Allied base number 10. However, when they were within the range of the light tanks at the intersection, they hurriedly stopped and waited for the bombing of Kirov airships. Base number 10 is located on a continuous mountain with many small roads, but there is only one main road. Most of the Prism tanks and Phantom tanks in the base are now blocked in this place, followed by a large number of multifunctional infantry vehicles, rocket pilots, and at the rear is a large field group of defense forces. Taking advantage of the geographical advantage, ordinary attacks really can't do anything to them. Apart from anything else, there is no way to break through the defense line of light tanks and Phantom tanks at the intersection alone. In order to deal with this crisis, Allied base number 10 has also made great efforts. However, when Wang Ling saw such a lineup from the edge of the dark area, he was not surprised but overjoyed. Although this lineup can block the crazy attacks of most of the coalition forces, the Wolf Group is not among them. During the garrison, the company waited for nearly 2 hours. The 3 Kirov airships finally flew over slowly. Under Wang Ling's order, they took a short rest and then charged directly into the Allied forces. In the base. Knowing the power of this thing, Allied forces number 10 did not dare to be careless, but they were also wary of the Wolf Group stationed outside. They only sent 5 rocket pilots to intercept the Kirov airship midway, which was regarded as a test of the waters. However, to be blunt, with Wang Ling's current anti-aircraft firepower, coupled with the Wolf Group's anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, even if all the rocket pilots from the entire base flew in, they would not be able to defeat them at all, let alone these 5 already. Just after flying out of the base, they had already entered Wang Ling's range. However, Wang Ling's air defense experience was full and he ignored them. However, those anti-aircraft crawlers then started fighting for it, and the 5 rocket pilots failed. Just hold on for 2 breaths before they are all shot down. After the 5 rocket pilots tested the firepower of the Wolf Group, they did not dare to send any more troops outside. They simply huddled all the air defense forces in the base, waiting to block the Kirov airship. While waiting, one of the 3 Kirov airships suddenly changed its route, bypassed this area, and began to sweep into the Allied base from the side, while the other 2 attacked from the front and could not sail. It didn't take long before he broke into the fire circle of the group of air defense troops. Fire! Swish swish swish! Swish swish swish! Choo choo choo! Choo choo choo! I don't know who ordered it, but all the air defense forces on the periphery opened fire. For a while, dense missiles shot into the sky, and the sound of a large number of artillery could not be heard. Under the bombardment of powerful air defense forces, 2 Kirov airships had just broken in. In the base, 1 ship was directly knocked down. This efficiency is quite high. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 364. If other coalition bases were to use Kirov airships to attack, facing such fierce and intensive air defense firepower from the Allies, they would really have no choice but to admit defeat. It would be impossible to blow up the Allied command post and 2 other productivity buildings. However, the Wolf Group is an exception. From the beginning, Wang Ling had no intention of letting the Kirov airship blow up the command post. His target was precisely these Allied troops. Among these troops, what Wang Ling fears the most is the Prism tank and the Phantom tank. However, Allied Base Number 10 was so sensitive that they mobilized both types of tanks to defend the intersection. In this way, Wang Ling's wishes were fulfilled. Choo choo choo! Boom! Boom boom! At the cost of 1 Kirov airship being shot down, another airship has arrived directly above the group of tanks. When encountering these tanks, Wang Ling was of course not polite. When he commanded them, he just said one word: explode. Giant bombs were dropped one after another and exploded into the group of light Prism tanks, knocking them off their feet on the spot. Almost every bomb could destroy 1 or 2 light Prism tanks. While bombing, the Kirov airship is still moving, flying wherever there are more light tanks, and blasting wherever there are more light tanks. This light tank is very powerful whether it is offensive or defensive, but its armor and health have really been criticized by the Allies for a long time. Facing the bombing of Kirov airships, it exploded easily. It couldn't withstand this kind of bombing at all. Just 5 or 6 bombs were dropped, and the entire light Prism tank group was blown to pieces. During this period, the Phantom tank was also having a hard time. On weekdays, the Phantom tank often hides in the base, disguised as a big tree. When it is not moving or attacking, Wang Ling can't tell the difference. However, under the threat of Kirov airships, these Phantom tanks, like the Prism tanks, blocked the entrance to the base. Isn't this a failure? When the Kirov airship dropped a huge bomb and blew up the Prism tank, the aftermath of the attack would also throw the Phantom tank into a huge arc. It could no longer maintain its camouflage state. Anyone affected by it would be knocked back to its original shape and be destroyed at the same time. Affected by the aftermath, the health bar was also greatly reduced, and then it was hit by the aftermath of another bomb and was directly blown up. Swish swish swish! Swish swish swish! Choo choo choo! Choo choo choo! During this period, the air defense forces in the base were also firing all the time. Under the powerful firepower, even the ultra-high armor of the Kirov airship was rapidly decreasing, and it was bombarded for a period of time. After a while, the raging Kirov airship was finally shot down. The huge and heavy airship fell down and directly destroyed a Prism tank and a Phantom tank. The 2 Kirov airships on the front were completely destroyed, but the Allies were not feeling well here either. After being bombed continuously for such a period of time, the number of light tanks guarding the intersection was reduced by 70 to 80%, with only 4 remaining, and 2 cars have residual health. Many phantom tanks were also destroyed, but Wang Ling couldn't tell how many were left due to the disguise. All in all, this blast was worth its weight in gold. Seeing this result, Wang Ling felt dumbfounded. What he fears the most is the allied prism tanks and phantom tanks. The combination of the two makes even Wang Ling feel uncomfortable. Whether he is guarding or attacking, he must pay extra attention to these two types of tanks. But this allied base number 10 is so good. Faced with the bombing by Kirov airships, it actually arranged these two ace tanks at the intersection. This is convenient for airship bombing. Although these two airships were not able to blow up much of the Allied guard field group, to Wang Ling, the prism tanks and phantom tanks that were blown up were more valuable than the two field groups combined. Buzzing. Just as Wang Ling was slandering, the third Kirov airship finally bypassed the entrance and flew into the Allied base from the side, far away from the main intersection. The Allied base concentrated its main air defense forces at intersections, but the internal air defense forces were relatively reduced. At this time, there were only 5 or 6 anti-aircraft missiles attacking back. Of course, the single shot of anti-aircraft missiles is also very powerful, but it is difficult to shoot down the Kirov airship in a short period of time. As a result, the Kirov airship just withstood the bombardment and flew towards it under Wang Ling's order. He found the closest power plant, and when he came directly above it, a bomb suddenly dropped, and the entire power plant exploded in an instant. This Allied base seems to have never suffered from a power outage and did not store too much electricity. As a result, it has tasted the consequences. Just a power plant burst and the entire base was without power. It was still in the middle of a counterattack. The anti-aircraft missiles also went out. However, this power outage also attracted the attention of the group of air defense forces at the intersection. They collectively changed their targets and ran towards the last Kirov airship. During this period, the Kirov airships were not satisfied and bombed the power plants one after another, blowing up 2 more before the air defense forces arrived. Even when the air defense force arrived and started to counterattack, the airship ignored it completely and continued to bomb the power plant without fear of death. It blew up 2 more power plants in a short period of time and even blew up the air command along the way. The troops were shot down by the group of flying soldiers and infantry vehicles. Brothers, it's time to charge. At the moment when the Kirov airship crashed to the ground, Wang Ling also issued the order for a general attack. All members of the Wolf group arranged in their usual formation and began a vigorous attack. Arranged at the front was naturally the tank army. Dozens of Rhino tanks and Apocalypse tanks launched a collective charge. This torrent of steel was so powerful that even the Allied bases did not dare to take a peek, not to mention that the base was now empty by Kirov. The boat has been bombed and is in poor condition. The troops of the field group in the rear began to move forward collectively, and the only 4 remaining light prism tanks relied on the high terrain to launch light prism rays from a very long distance, and a large range of lines were connected. On many tanks. If there were 20 or 30 light tanks guarding the base, the tank army would suffer heavy losses even if it rushed to the base. However, after the Kirov airship bombardment, these 4 tanks were the only ones left. Not caring about the firepower, he endured the light prism bombardment without slowing down at all. After a burst of speed, he rushed up the slope and destroyed the remaining 4 light prism tanks with a few rounds of shells. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Rumble. At the same time, the field team members guarding the base also began to fight back. The dense fire snakes shot down, and the Rhino tanks exploded one after another. During this period, the remaining phantom tanks at the intersection also began to attack. Under concentrated fire, they killed a Rhino tank with just 1 round of bombardment, and then opened fire on an Apocalypse tank, destroying it with just 2 rounds of bombardment. In terms of defense and damage to various types of soldiers, this phantom tank is quite terrifying, and even Wang Ling has to be a little afraid of it. However, under this bombardment, the location of these phantom tanks was also exposed. Wang Ling observed from the electronic map that there were 6 phantom tanks left in the base. No wonder the destructive power was so strong. However, after their position was exposed, the 6 phantom tanks were in danger. Wang Ling began to fire from a distance at the foot of the hillside. A round of electromagnetic attacks enveloped them all, and also covered dozens of Allied troops. "Soldier, kill him in a few breaths." At the same time, the large mobilization force of the Wolf Group had also arrived on the hillside, hiding behind the tanks, and began to focus their fire on the counterattack. The battle had just begun, and it was intensifying. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 365. Hit me hard, don't let me let go of anyone. The two sides exchanged fire without mercy. White knives went in and red knives came out. All kinds of artillery fire and all kinds of fire snakes were bombing and flying in dense numbers. Soldiers and tanks were killed on both sides at all times. The cruelty of war was demonstrated everywhere. This is simply risking your life. But there is no way, this is war, between the two sides, either you die or I die. Wang Ling personally participated in the Red Alert War and had already looked away. Now he showed no mercy towards this group of allies. A burst of electricity exploded all the phantom tanks and killed dozens of Allied soldiers. Still shouting, giving death orders to the entire group of soldiers to destroy all these allies. Rumble! Rumble! Ta-da-da ta-da-da! On the front line, the Wolf Group's most ferocious fire was naturally the elite tanks, especially the elite Apocalypse. The rumbling sound of the cannons carried extremely terrifying destructive power, and they seemed to be ready to blow up all the mountains. The guards of the Allied field group, who were affected by such artillery shells, without exception, all died tragically in an instant. The Grizzly tank was tougher, but it couldn't withstand this kind of firepower. It exploded after a few rounds. Facing such a ferocious weapon, the Allied field team was clearly risking their lives, gathering a large amount of firepower to counterattack, and they still felt like they couldn't resist it. However, quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes. On the Allied territory, there were a large number of field group soldiers, and under concentrated fire, the Wolf Group tanks were bursting at all times. Once the tank acting as a shield bursts, the conscripts sheltering behind it can only push forward to withstand the Allied firepower while firing with all their strength. Although the number of Wolf Group mobilized soldiers was not comparable to the total number of soldiers in the Allied base, the power of the concentrated fire when gathered together and carried on the battle line also frightened the Allied forces. They were almost countless. Allied soldiers and tanks died and exploded under this firepower. During this period, the Wolf Group's anti-aircraft tracked vehicles were also among them, hiding behind the Apocalypse tank to sneak attack on the Allied soldiers. This tracked vehicle does considerable damage to soldiers. Under a sneak attack, all Allied soldiers caught will be bombarded to death in almost the blink of an eye. The sneak attack has been tried and tested repeatedly. The most terrifying thing is that Wang Ling, the chief team leader, is constantly launching electromagnetic attacks among the soldiers. A large number of Allied soldiers and tanks will be enveloped, lose blood quickly, and will be electrocuted to death before they can hold on for long. Each round of electromagnetic attacks can clear out a large area of open space. The efficiency is so high that it is even more efficient than all the mobilized soldiers of the Wolf Group combined. The fierce battle between the two sides was so crazy that the rumbling sound shook the earth, as if the earth could not bear such a firefight. Naturally, this kind of fierce battle cannot continue in a stalemate. The more fierce it is, the quicker the winner can be determined. The result of this attack was undoubtedly the victory of the Wolf Group. Although the firepower of the Allied field team was not bad, the powerful weapon of the Wolf team and Wang Ling's sweep made it difficult for the Allied forces to parry. Moreover, the previous bombing by Kirov airships almost destroyed most of the big killers in the base. The Prism tank and Phantom tank suffered heavy losses. In addition, the power was cut off in advance, and the Prism tower, a defensive weapon, became a how could the field team in the base withstand the ferocious attack of the Wolf team? Not long after the battle started, a huge gap was torn open at the entrance by the Wolf group, allowing members of the Wolf group to file in. The brothers of the Wolf group have held off the enemy from the frontal battlefield. Now it's our turn. I won't argue with you in the summer. My brother died in the battle. This base is one of the culprits. Now I want to take revenge and beat his mother-in-law hard. The front entrance defense line of the Allied forces was torn apart, and Fire Group Zayashin finally found an opportunity. He raised his Babisha submachine gun and shouted. Although a few words of mobilization were simple, they fit the psychology of all the soldiers, and instantly surged. Tao was full of fighting spirit and began to charge. The mountainous area where General No 10's Allied forces base is located has many roads. The only main road has been captured and occupied by the Wolf group. The Fire group did not try to add icing on the cake. Instead, under the leadership of Yan Tian, they quickly rushed to the side road, passed over and stormed the Allied base from one side. After all, with hatred, Yan Tian's fire team fights even more crazily than the Wolf team. They are simply a fierce and fearless fighting style. However, the Allied base was in poor condition. The large force lost to the Wolf group in a frontal battle. Now the number of soldiers was sharply reduced, and the combat effectiveness was also reduced sharply. As a result, the Fire group was caught off guard on the spot, with a large number of soldiers and tanks. Many people died in battle, and a large number of buildings were demolished, as if there was a strong virus invasion. At the front intersection, the Wolf group showed its might, tearing open the gap and launching a fierce attack. Allied soldiers came and killed as many as they came. On one side, there was a Fire group taking advantage of the fire and knocking out sap. Their attacks were much darker than those of the Wolf group. The entire base was exposed for a while. The situation has declined, and there is a feeling of precariousness. This also made the commanders in the base extremely anxious, and they desperately urged the surrounding Allied bases to request support. In such a hurry to ask for help, Base 11 finally took action. First, 4 invader fighter planes were dispatched to sneak attack the tanks of the Wolf group and the Fire group. Then the reinforcements from the rear front also began to gather. They moved out of the base on a large scale, apparently wanting to support them. But will the Steel group agree? The moment the reinforcements set off, everyone was on standby. Even the field team that was holding down the enemy next door also took action and quickly moved closer to the Steel team, as if they were about to invade in a large scale. However, Base 11 did not think about withdrawing the reinforcements. After all, the base's combat effectiveness has not left, and the coalition forces may have tigers here again. But this time, the commander of the Allied base number 11 guessed wrong. The leader of the Steel team, Long Gang, was also a tough guy. He had seen many deaths in battles before, and he also had a strong hatred for the Allied forces. He had been looking forward to it for a long time. I can give this ally a good beating. After the field group next door successfully approached, the two field groups then launched an attack. This was not a bluff, but a real forcible attack, and the firepower was very fierce. The two field groups burst out with powerful combat power in an instant, dismantling all the defensive buildings at the entrance to Base 11 and fighting with the defending Allied forces. A fierce battle broke out. Hurry, come back quickly. Feeling the majestic fighting spirit of these two field groups, the commander of Base 11 suddenly became a little panicked. He would not sacrifice his own base to support other bases, so he just sent the reinforcements halfway to support them. Sheng Sheng shouted back. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 366. Damn it! Not many of these allied commanders have the backbone to dare to fight head-on. After observing the retreat of the reinforcements on the electronic map, Long Gang was filled with hatred. Although Long Gang looks cold on the outside, he is actually a temperamental person. Many of his comrades died in battle, which also makes him full of hatred for the Allies, but he rarely shows it on weekdays. Now, although it is just to contain the Allied reinforcements, Long Gang himself hopes that these Allied reinforcements will leave, and then join forces with friendly forces to fight with the Allied forces with real swords and guns. Even if he dies in battle, there won't be any complaints. However, the high-level commanders of the Allied forces all had their own calculations. When their own bases were in trouble, they simply refused to let go of the reinforcements. Even if the number 10 base was annihilated, it would not be as good as their own safety. Retreat. There was no other way. Although Long Gang hated him, he could only issue a temporary retreat order. If those reinforcements retreated here and flanked their two field groups, they would also be in danger. Long Gang has strong hatred and fighting spirit, but it is not as fiery as Xia Tian. Since they have successfully contained the reinforcements, they cannot risk their lives at this time. The leader of another coalition field group also issued a retreat order at the same time. The two field groups fought and retreated. They were at the entrance of Allied base number 11, so they naturally managed to escape quickly. Allied base number 11 did not dare to pursue them. They just blocked the soldiers at the entrance again and stood ready. Indeed, this commander knew that the mission goal of the two major field groups of the coalition was just to contain them, but he underestimated Long Gang, thinking that the attack of the Gang group was just for show. But I didn't expect that after the other reinforcements left, the two field groups would really launch an attack, and their ferocious appearance gave them a fighting to the end attitude. The time to go to base 10 for rescue was a bit tight. Instead of putting your own base at risk to rescue the base that might fall at any time, it would be better to withdraw the reinforcements and defend your own base first. That's right, the commanders within the Allied forces are not monolithic. When it comes to such risks, they all think about protecting themselves first. As for the Allied forces, when they faced a group of light prism tanks, all the reinforcement tanks charged desperately to weaken the power of the light prism tanks. The Allies could not do it. Although those reinforcements were not under the control of the commander of Allied Base 11, they finally returned as ordered and were stationed again in Base 11. Snort. Seeing the reinforcements retreating into position, Long Gang couldn't help but snorted coldly. After suppressing his inner anger, he observed from the electronic map and murmured to himself, Wang Ling, Yan Tian, reinforcements. I've stopped you. If you don't completely bulldoze base 10, don't come to see me again. Wang Ling and Yan Tian had no time to pay attention to what happened in Allied base number 11 during the battle. The battle between the two sides was now in full swing. The Wolf group attacked head-on, tore through the defense line, and contained a large number of troops in the Allied base. However, they still pushed forward little by little with the idea of slowing down and rushing into the battle. Whenever they encountered the Allied troops, they would attack them with rapid force. Firepower wiped it out. On the other hand, the Fire group was a little fanatical. Under the leadership of Xia Tian, the entire Fire group had already started a large-scale sweep when the Allied troops still had combat effectiveness. They advanced rapidly, passing almost no piece of armor is left alive. Gods will kill gods if they stop them, and Buddhas will kill Buddhas if they stop them. Such a momentum naturally caused panic in the Allied base. The troops rushing towards the Wolf group turned around one after another. First, they had to extinguish the rushing flames. During this, the air defense forces that had previously attacked the Kirov airship had to join the battle. Dozens of multi-purpose infantry vehicles and dozens of rocket pilots, in conjunction with the firepower of other soldiers, counterattacked in one fell swoop, and the fire group was destroyed on the spot. Caught off guard, a large number of soldiers were lost, and even a number of tanks exploded. However, this also attracted the attention of the fire team. The entire team stopped charging, gathered all the anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, and started bombarding behind the battle line. They had to deal with these rocket pilots first. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Of course, the strength of the fire team is not as good as that of the Wolf team with player Wang Ling in charge. The number of elites in the anti-aircraft tracked vehicles is smaller. However, this type of tracked vehicle itself is the nemesis of the infantry, especially the damage to the rocket pilots. Obvious. After the group of rocket pilots were bombarded, they immediately changed their targets and began to fight back against the anti-aircraft crawlers. However, after a continuous bombardment, only 6 of the fire group's anti-aircraft crawlers exploded, and all the rocket pilots they were all shot down. The Wolf team slowed down their momentum and naturally had the opportunity to witness the result. Although the victory looked great to outsiders, Wang Ling couldn't help but shake his head. If these rocket pilots came to stop the Wolf group, Wang Ling was even sure that they would not be able to kill any of them, and they would be killed in the middle. This is the confidence of his 10-star King-level air defense infantry. Brothers, speed up and completely level the entire base. After sighing, Wang Ling suddenly changed his strategy and began to speed up the progress, leading the Wolf group on a rampage. The fire team's attack was haphazard. They demolished whatever they saw and ignored the function of the building. However, Wang Ling was worried, fearing that the Allied base would restore power and catch the light prism tower off guard, so he focused on dismantling the power plant during the charge, completely cutting off the possibility of restoring power. Facts have proved that Wang Ling's concerns were indeed correct. As he gradually broke into the Allied base, the remaining dark areas on the electronic map in this area were also explored. Wang Ling actually saw a large area from behind. The power plant even has 2 giant cannons. Fortunately, the power was cut off in advance, and the power plant was continued to be demolished. Otherwise, under the threat of these 2 giant cannons, the 2 field groups would be able to demolish the entire base, but the number of casualties would increase exponentially. Now that it was discovered, there was no reason not to dismantle it. Wang Ling led the Wolf group and pushed directly there, dismantling all the power plants at once, and then blew up 2 giant cannons, completely cutting off the power plant. Hope for a base counterattack. After destroying these, Wang Ling finally lost his scruples. With a swipe of his pen, the Wolf group began to sweep away in all directions. In conjunction with the fire group's attack, the originally mighty Allied base number 10 was unable to fight back. After a period of sweeping, all the buildings in the entire base were pushed aside, and even the soldiers were swept away. Except for the scattered minecarts, nothing remained. Allied base number 10 was officially destroyed. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 367. As the last light prism tower of Allied base number 10 was dismantled and the last Allied soldier was shot and killed, this targeted attack finally ended with the victory of the Wolf group and the Fire group. The originally invincible 10, the Allied base, also died with the end of the war. Seeing the mess all over the place and smelling the strong smell of gunpowder smoke that remained after the war, all the members of the Wolf group and the Fire group were a little stunned. Many people were gasping for air subconsciously. It's over, it's over. We won. Ha ha ha, okay, I win. Oh. 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 Dot. And this state did not last long, and some soldiers recovered. With a shout, all the personnel were awakened, and then bursts of cheers came from the entire messy battlefield. It's great to win this war. And it's great to be able to survive after such a fierce battle. Brother, I asked you to show off, but you died in the battle without having the last laugh. Don't you feel aggrieved? It's fine now. I've avenged this revenge for you. Go and reincarnate with peace of mind. Xia Tian was also very excited, and his whole body was trembling. However, he did not cheer and shout like the other soldiers. Instead, he muttered to himself, seemingly praying. Relatively speaking, Wang Ling was calmer. After all, he was a player. Even when he came to the Red Alert world, he had experienced too many similar scenes. He felt a little resistant in his heart. He just slowly came to Yan Tian. Next to him, he patted his shoulder, but didn't say anything to comfort him. In this battle, other field teams cooperated to contain the reinforcements, and together with the fire team, they captured the number 10 Allied base. It can be said to be a beautiful victory. However, this victory was also achieved with the lives of a large number of soldiers and tanks. In this battle, the Wolf Group once again lost hundreds of conscripts, and nearly half of the various tanks exploded. Wang Ling felt heartbroken. Fortunately, most of the 3-star elite tanks survived and did not damage the foundation of the Wolf Group. Although the Fire Group attacked in a detour later and took advantage of the Allies' loopholes, the number of casualties suffered by its soldiers and tanks was no less than that of the Wolf Group. There are sacrifices in fighting, even if you win the battle, there are no exceptions. However, compared to the record of completely wiping out the entire number 10 Allied base, these losses can be considered very small. The Wolf Group was dispatched and the second Allied base was completely annihilated. Seeing this battle on the electronic map, the commanders of many coalition bases were all overjoyed and congratulated General Li Wiki. They had not cared about the Wolf Group before. The commanders also began to pay close attention to the Wolf Group. Even within the general headquarters, the commander also noticed this field group, and even specially retrieved the information of Wang Ling, the group leader. This field team and this team leader are a little unusual. However, Yuri's face was expressionless, and he could not see any excitement. His face was just slightly gloomy. He stared at Wang Ling in the electronic video, not knowing what he was thinking. Compared with the excitement of the Allied forces were furious with anger. In the headquarters, General Bob's roar frightened everyone around him. On the battlefield, although Wang Ling personally promoted all this, he obviously didn't care about other people's opinions. After the war, he sat on the ground, panted and rested for a while, then stood up and said, "Brother Yantian, it's been a long time, there has never been such a joint operation before, happy cooperation." Xia Tian just had a bitter look on his face, curled up his lips, and accepted Wang Ling's feelings, but didn't say much. Afterwards, the two briefly chatted on the battlefield, and then it was time to part ways. This is already the second Allied base that the Wolf Group has destroyed. Wang Ling can also guess the anger of the Allied forces. If they use this old routine to attack again, it is estimated that the Allied forces will also have targeted strategies. Not only the Wolf the team will be in danger, and even other contained field teams will encounter mishaps. In the next period of time, it will not be suitable to continue the attack. Without an attack plan, it would be too dangerous for the Wolf Group and other field groups to continue to leave the base and garrison on the Allied territory. Then it would be time to retreat. Before retreating, Wang Ling took a special look at the electronic map. Previously, the two armies faced each other, always in a stalemate. Later, the coalition produced Kirov airships, which gradually reversed the situation of the war and slowly began to suppress the Allies. Now Wang Ling led his team to destroy two Allied bases in succession, and even gave the Allies a powerful combination of punches, which almost injured the Allied forces. Although he is retreating now, Wang Ling is confident that he will make a careful plan to attack next time. This decisive battle will almost have a result. Of course, that's all for later. During the retreat, it was rare that the allies did not harass them. Wang Ling led a large wolf group and drove for a long time. Finally, they rushed back to the base in the middle of the night. After fighting fiercely for a long time and continuing to rush, everyone in the wolf group, including Wang Ling, was very tired. The base did not hold a celebration party immediately, but quickly arranged a safe resting place for the wolf group. Wang Ling lay on the hard bed and let out a long breath. This battlefield has finally come to an end. Then he contacted Uncle He in his mind and returned to the transfer station of the different dimensional system. Uncle He, 2 bases in succession, a large number of soldiers and tanks, the accumulated points should be quite a lot, right? After seeing Uncle He, Wang Ling asked with a smile. Since the last statistics, Wang Ling's total points are just over 20,000 points short of unlocking the advanced redemption. In terms of points for these 2 consecutive battles launched by the Wolf Group, the points should be almost the same. Uncle He smiled and nodded, and made detailed statistics. Since the last statistics, you have accumulated a total of 386 survival points, you have killed 864 allied soldiers of all types, including 62 1-star veterans and 3-star elites. 46, 2 snipers, 9,430 points, shot down 12 allied fighter planes, 360 points, shot down 476 carrier-based fighters, 4,760 points, annihilated 188 allied tanks of various types, including 23 veterans and 18 Samsung Elites vehicles, a total of 4,650 points, destroy 37 allied defense buildings of various types, 1,850 points, destroy 29 main allied buildings, 2,900 points, 2 command posts, 1,000 points. In addition, because of your deployment, the battle situation has made significant progress. Additional, the reward is 500 points, plus the remaining 38,214 points, you now have a total of 64,050 points left. After counting the final amount of points, Uncle He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Haha, kid, congratulations. This time you gained a lot of points at once, plus your remaining ones, plus the ones you have used before. Points, your total points have exceeded 100,000, and you have successfully unlocked advanced redemption. After being informed of the result, Uncle He even clicked his tongue and sighed, I didn't expect that your boy actually persisted to this point. It's not easy, it's not easy. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 368. No wonder Uncle He would sigh like this. When the extra-dimensional system was randomly given to Wang Ling, how bad was Wang Ling's physical fitness? He couldn't even pass the school's basic physical fitness test. Uncle He had a lot of doubts about Wang Ling at the beginning. Even when Wang Ling first tried the game world, Uncle He set a stumbling block for him. One was to persuade him to quit, and the other was to test. Wang Ling, in the end, although I was exhausted, I finally passed the test successfully. Later, Wang Ling gradually adapted to the living environment of this game world and gradually started exercising. It was not until he was injected with basic physical fitness enhancers that he ushered in a big change and began to make rapid progress in the Red Alert world. However, after learning about the 2 sides of the system, Wang Ling became timid as expected, and developed symptoms of fear common to most hosts. At that time, although Uncle He was constantly persuading, Wang Ling would react every time, and there was almost nothing he could do. Just when Uncle He thought that Wang Ling would stop there and could not overcome this psychological barrier, the death of the instructor became the catalyst for Wang Ling to become stronger, causing Wang Ling to bring hatred to his heart. After successive battles, he gradually became a game world. The most dazzling person in the world. Whether it is basic exchange or intermediate exchange, they are the basis of the different dimensional system. Only this advanced exchange is the top priority of the entire system. However, how easy is it to unlock the total amount of 100,000 points required for advanced redemption? However, Wang Ling succeeded. That little guy who was very weak at the beginning actually made it this far. As these memories flashed through in an instant, Uncle Hay would inevitably sigh. 64,050 points. As for Wang Ling, he simply ignored Uncle Hay's sigh. After hearing the result, he felt excited in his heart. Have you finally reached the high-level redemption? Haha, I can wait for this day. It's been too long. Although the training in the Red Alert world has allowed Wang Ling to develop an iron will and character, he is still a normal person, and it is inevitable that he will have emotions and desires, and he even couldn't hold back from jumping up when he was excited. Did a backflip, and Uncle Hay was dumbfounded. After this burst of venting, Wang Ling gradually calmed down and couldn't help but urge, Uncle Hay, hurry up, pull it out and see if there are any high-end gadgets in this high-end exchange that can revive Xiao He. After all, what he misses most is Xiao He's police dog. Uncle Hay did not tempt him too much. He snapped his fingers and pulled out the exchange system out of thin air. The originally dark area under basic exchange and intermediate exchange finally became bright, displaying the words advanced exchange. When I clicked on it, I saw that this high-end exchange only had two pitiful items. Uncle Hay, the interdimensional system is so defiant, why is the high-level exchange so awkward? Seeing this, Wang Ling couldn't help but become sarcastic. Uncle Hay suddenly staggered, and after he regained his balance, he yelled, knocked up. You kid, you deserve a beating, don't you? You are the first person I know who dares to say that high-level exchanges are made for knocking. Wang Ling said nothing, but looked at Uncle Hay with a little contempt. Uncle Hay had no choice but to take a breath and then said, the different dimensional system does not have so many fancy redemption items, but each item is very important. Moreover, this advanced redemption is the core of the entire system. Don't underestimate this advanced exchange. Yeah. Wang Ling seemed a little unimpressed, but in fact he was also very interested in this statement, and then he took a closer look at these two high-level exchanges. The first item is the Advanced Physical Fitness Enhancer. Wang Ling had already guessed this exchange, and there was nothing surprising about it. The second item is a bit unfamiliar, Virtual Life Materialization. Wang Ling has been exposed to this system for a long time and thinks he already knows a lot about it. For example, Wang Ling could understand the settings of each of the previous basic exchange and intermediate exchange items, but the new term new exchange that came out now confused Wang Ling on the spot. Virtual life materialization? What do you mean? Is this the option to resurrect Xiao He? Wang Ling was a little confused. However, this advanced redemption has been unlocked and cannot be run away. For something that is not easy to understand at first glance, Wang Ling did not immediately click on the detailed explanation. Instead, he moved his eyes to the Advanced Physical Fitness Enhancer. Although Wang Ling mainly wanted to resurrect the police dog Xiao He, he was also looking forward to this enhancer. After the intermediate level of strengthening, Wang Ling's physical fitness was already very abnormal. If he goes through the advanced level of strengthening, how strong will he become? This question made Wang Ling extremely interested, and he quickly clicked on this item. I saw the detailed explanation. Advanced Physical Fitness Enhancer is the most advanced enhancement agent developed at this stage. It directly acts on the genetic level to strengthen the human body to the level of a humanoid monster. It requires 50,000 points to redeem. Successful completion of the enhancement afterwards, the skin of the whole body is as hard as steel, and the cell activity is greatly enhanced. It can quickly repair body injuries in case of non-fatal injuries. The immunity is enhanced, and it can be immune to most viruses and stay away from the threat of disease. The longevity is strengthened, due to genetic changes, with additional benefits. Can increase lifespan by 1 month. Strengthen the 5 senses, dramatically strengthen the 5 senses of the human body, and the strengthening effect varies from person to person. It is indeed the most advanced strengthening potion. This detailed introduction made Wang Ling a little frightened and even a little excited. The overall strengthening effect is more than 1.5 points stronger than the intermediate strengthening. Is the skin all over your body as hard as steel? Doesn't that mean that in the world of Red Alert, even bullets are difficult to break his skin? Enhanced cell activity. The self-healing ability of the 3-star elite soldiers is finally available, but judging from this introduction, it seems to be even stronger than the healing ability of those elite soldiers. Enhanced immunity. In other words, after advanced enhancement, he will basically not get sick. All the terrible diseases in the world, whether it is cancer or AIDS, can no longer break through his immune system. And the lifespan enhancement, 1 year's lifespan, a full 60 years. What benefits are more precious than directly increasing lifespan? This enhancement is too perverted. There are some detailed enhancement introductions below the detailed introduction, but those are clear to the mind after just one glance. Compared with the previous enhancements, they are not too out of the ordinary. Hoo-hoo. After seeing these intensive introductions, even though Wang Ling was well prepared, his heart couldn't help but beat fast, and he breathed heavily due to excitement. However, just when Wang Ling was imagining how much he would change after advanced enhancement, he looked down out of habit and frowned when he saw the warning item at the bottom, warning, advanced physical enhancement. Because of its very powerful strengthening effect, the strengthening process is extremely difficult and unbearable for ordinary people. The overall strengthening success rate is only 20%. Those who choose this strengthening agent must be careful. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 369. 20% Success Rate. Wang Ling was originally excited when he saw the detailed explanation of the advanced enhancer, but when he finally saw the success rate, he suddenly became anxious, like a monkey whose tail has been stepped on. Uncle Hey, what's going on? Why is the success rate of this advanced enhancement so low? There is still an 80% success rate in the intermediate enhancement. The high-level enhancement has to be 50%. Why is it all of a sudden? Is it as low as 20%? Also, can he not be anxious? The 80% success rate of the last intermediate enhancement made him hesitate for a long time. Finally, he had to overcome the hurdle in his heart before he accepted it. And during the enhancement, he was tortured to death. If it weren't for his willpower is strong enough, but he may not be able to survive it. Well now, the success rate of advanced enhancement has dropped sharply to 20%. The lower the success rate, the more difficult and painful it will be to strengthen. 80% of the pain is still fresh in Wang Ling's memory, let alone the 20%. What's more, given the urinary nature of this different dimensional system, it's a waste of time. If you don't succeed, you will die. Once the advanced enhancement fails, there is only one way to die. Seeing so many incredible enhancement effects, Wang Ling was tempted to give it a try if the enhancement success rate could be 50%, but this 20% completely dispelled Wang Ling's idea he has no guarantee of success at all. Uncle He was not surprised that he asked such a question, and just nodded calmly. If you want to gain more advanced abilities, you will naturally have to pay a higher price. For this point, in the process of basic strengthening and intermediate strengthening, I can also feel it. The effect of this advanced enhancement is unparalleled, so it is naturally not easy to succeed. In fact, the warning states that the success rate is 20%, but that is only the overall success rate, which varies from person to person. Speaking of this, Uncle He even gave Wang Ling a playful look and said sarcastically, "For example, although you have been strengthened twice, the number of times you have changed your arms is still too few, and you have not gained enough experience to strengthen your arms. Without this basically, the success rate of your injection of this advanced strengthening potion is actually lower than stated in the warning, probably not more than 10%. No more than 10%." Upon hearing this conclusion, Wang Ling couldn't help but swallow hard. Looking at the eloquent introduction of advanced enhancement, Wang Ling's heart felt as if it had been scratched by a cat's claws. It was so uncomfortable that it was filled with mixed emotions. This is like a very hungry person who sees a very delicious fruit and wants to eat it, but is told that the fruit is poisonous. Can it not be uncomfortable? However, after training for so long, Wang Ling was finally able to withstand the temptation. Instead of redeeming the advanced enhancement agent directly, he shook his head and sighed, "Forget it, Uncle He, advanced enhancement is good, but you have to live your life to enjoy it, but I don't have the confidence at all to win the 10% on the bet, so let's forget it this time." "Haha, are you giving up now?" Uncle He had attacked Wang Ling. It was not surprising that Wang Ling would give up this very tempting enhancement, put away the detailed explanation, and said, "It's okay, although you have enough points now, but after all, the foundation is not enough. Even if you want to strengthen it now, I won't agree. Now that we have put advanced strengthening at the back, let's take a look at the next item, virtual life materialization." As he spoke, Uncle He began to explain the second advanced exchange in detail. Wang Ling is still very curious and interested in the redemption of this item. According to Uncle He, this item should be the core of the entire system, and there should be a way to resurrect Xiao He. Based on this curiosity, Wang Ling quickly adjusted his previous mentality and watched the detailed explanation of this exchange. "I saw the above introduction, virtual life materialization. You can pay a certain amount of points to materialize the virtual life in the game into the real world, and exist in a semi-physical and semi-virtual life condition. The range of redeemable virtual lives includes games all arms in the game, such as infantry, animals, tanks, aircraft, ships, and other autonomous arms, including those who have died in battle. The prerequisite for redemption is that the status in your own camp must not be higher than that of the host, and you must have an intersection with the host, or they are direct subordinates of the host. The enemy camp must be killed by the host or its subordinates in order to obtain the exchange authority. This exchange is divided into temporary exchange and permanent exchange. Under temporary exchange, infantry-type life units consume 10 points per hour, armor-type units consume 20 points per hour, and the host can decide the time to recycle them at any time. Permanent exchange, infantry-type life types cost 10,000 points, and armored types cost 20,000 points. After redemption, you cannot return to the game world. You can temporarily return to the system to rest. Note, there is no redemption limit for this redemption, as long as the host has enough points. The redeemed life has complete memories and abilities in the game world. At the same time as the redemption, the corresponding arms will receive detailed instructions from the system and know their own and the host, and are absolutely loyal to the host. After the temporary exchange is completed, the troops return to the game world, and their memories in the real world will be stored in the artificial intelligence brain and cannot be brought into the game world. They can be used during the next exchange. Retrieve memories at any time. Special attention should be paid to whether the exchange is temporary or permanent. The unit being exchanged has only one life. If it dies in the real world, it will also die in the game and cannot be exchanged anymore. A lot of detailed introduction, it finally comes to an end here. When Wang Ling watched, he did see the opportunity and choice to resurrect Xiao He, and permanently in the real world. However, after reading it, Wang Ling was not as excited as he expected. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and stared at the exchange. Originally, Wang Ling thought that resurrecting Xiao He would mean resurrecting him into the red alert world, but he didn't expect that he would be resurrecting him directly into the real world. Moreover, looking at this introduction, it is obvious that Xiaohei is not the only one who can be summoned from the red alert world to the real world. No exchange limit. And for temporary redemption, you only need 10 points per hour, 20 points? That means Wang Ling can exchange the entire wolf group into the real world at any time. With the firepower and fighting power of the wolf group, what would it be like if they suddenly appeared in the real world? Sure enough, as Uncle Hay said, this redemption item is the core of the entire interdimensional system. All the previous events in the red alert world, apart from strengthening Wang Ling himself, can be said to be completely laying the foundation for this redemption project. In this redemption project, Wang Ling vaguely seemed to smell something different. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 370. So, are you satisfied with this redemption project? While Wang Ling was thinking about it secretly, Uncle Hay asked proudly. As the artificial intelligence and steward of a different dimensional system, he is very clear about the significance of this redemption project. After Wang Ling heard this, he took a long breath and said with some inexplicable meaning, "Satisfied, so satisfied. This redemption project seems to be completely beyond my control." Oh, when Uncle Hay heard this, he was stunned at first, but after all, he already had human thoughts and emotions, and quickly sorted out Wang Ling's concerns. He couldn't help but smiled and replied, "Your concerns are now a little bit, it's redundant. Don't forget, I am just the steward of the system, and you are the current owner of the system. How to use this system and how to use these exchanges is entirely up to you." Having said that, when I first came into contact with this redemption project, I was still a little at a loss. Wang Ling still maintained some vigilance and did not dare to use this redemption project for a while. Uncle Hay tempted, "What's so easy to adapt to? In the game world, after all, you are also the leader of a large field group. You should be used to that kind of leadership position. Now, with these points in hand, you can completely summon your wolf group into the real world. With the power of the wolf group, you can do almost anything you want in the real world. This kind of power is at your fingertips now, so why should you hesitate?" Wang Ling clenched his teeth and stared at Uncle Hay, but remained silent. Uncle Hay couldn't help but smile when he saw Wang Ling like this, and then said, "Leave aside the wolf group, Xiaohei, whom you have been thinking about so much before, can be redeemed directly into your real world with this exchange item, even if it is permanent. The redemption is only 10,000 points. Think about it, Xiaohei died for you in the game world. Haven't you been working hard to resurrect him these days?" I have to say that Uncle Hay's temptation was really on point. After hearing this, Wang Ling was very moved. However, in the end, his reason prevailed and he did not try easily. "Anyway, the permission to redeem the item has been opened. I can redeem it at any time, and I am not in a hurry. Uncle Hay, let me go back to the real world. I need to think carefully." Uncle Hay did not continue to seduce and persuade. As Wang Ling finished speaking, he had already sent his main mind back to the real world. After returning to the real world, Wang Ling lay on the bed and had mixed feelings for a while. Indeed, he had been holding on to the idea of resurrecting the police dog Xiaohei and unlocking the advanced redemption as quickly as possible, but after he actually unlocked it, he had concerns. After all, this overall exchange project is too tempting, but the temptation also contains danger. If you take a step forward, you may have extremely powerful power in the real world, and may even affect the entire real world. Of course, Wang Ling needs to control all of this, but for Wang Ling, isn't this a huge temptation? Tossing and turning, thinking over and over again, every time he thought about the redemption item, he always felt that desire in his heart was about to move. This feeling is very torturous, as if my heart has been scratched by a cat's claws. After struggling for a while, Wang Ling still found it difficult to settle down. But in this confusion, he suddenly thought of someone, Professor Li Dong. When Professor Li Dong came to teach, he also awakened Wang Ling invisibly. Professor Li Dong had studied deep hypnosis, which was very similar to the principles of the extra-dimensional system. In the current situation, it was perfect to ask this old professor. Although it was dark now, it was not past 12 o'clock after all, so it was not too late. Wang Ling did not worry too much. He found Professor Li Dong's phone number and hurriedly dialed it. Toot. Toot. Hello. The bell only rang twice before Professor Li Dong answered it. It seemed that he was not sleeping. Wang Ling quickly replied, "Hello, Teacher Li, I am Wang Ling. When you came to our school to teach, I chased the student you asked about the theory of deep hypnosis." "Haha, I know. I have contact notes on my phone. I still remember that. Didn't you call me last time and ask me if I should get rabies vaccination after being bitten by a dog under deep hypnosis?" Professor Li Dong laughed. Said. When Wang Ling heard this, he felt a little embarrassed. It was really him who did that. Just when he was embarrassed, Professor Li Dong had already asked, "What, young man, did you encounter any problems again during this call? Is it still about deep hypnosis?" Wang Ling didn't hide it. It's this kind of question. Teacher, I suddenly have a question about deep hypnosis. If during deep hypnosis, I gain enough power to overturn the world, where should I go? How should I treat it? This power? Do you want to accept it?" Wang Ling felt a little abrupt when he asked this question. However, Professor Li Dong did not find it strange. Instead, he said meaningfully, "Young man, do you really have the channel to perform deep hypnosis?" This Wang Ling didn't know how to answer for a while. "Haha, don't worry, I'm just asking." Professor Li Dong did not pursue the question, quickly bypassed the question, and replied, "As for your question, it is actually very simple. If deep hypnosis comes true, it will be true. It is not an exaggeration to be able to gradually induce the hypnotized person to acquire various abilities, and even gain the power to subvert the world. However, while gaining power, it is also a test of the heart." Professor Li Dong said, "Power is not a sin, desire is. However, many people awaken their desires through power. For example, those villains who are accustomed to seeing in movies will lose their lives if they take that step and cause harm to one party. In one's heart, what awaits ahead will be boundless darkness. On the contrary, by gaining strength, some people can control their inner desires, benefit society, and become heroes portrayed in movies. Of course, they can even cherish these. Strength is not an exaggeration to be an ordinary person." After a pause, Professor Li Dong finally concluded, "With a sword in your hand, you can use it to kill innocent people indiscriminately, you can also use it to get rid of demons, defend the law, and support justice. You can even keep it and not use it, just use it. Be an ordinary person. Whether this sword is good or evil depends entirely on the thought of the sword holder. In the same way, power is not a fault, but with power, good and evil are just a matter of thought. The more tempting, the more it's about staying true to your heart and not taking a path that you will regret."